Howdy, this is Karen from Karen Dawn Designs, and today I'm going to teach you how to do the Garter Tab Cast-On. This is a cast-on that is typical of shawls, especially triangular or semicircular, that start at the center and through increases work their way out. So as you can see here, I have the beginning of what would be a triangular shawl with this Garter Tab Cast-On. That would be this middle section right here. And first, before we actually do the Garter Tab Cast-On, I want to talk a little bit about why you would want to do this. As you can see from this edge, it is nice and straight. That middle section actually blends into the rest of the bottom, so that way it all flows in one continuous straight line. I have an example of if I just cast on stitches and did not actually do any sort of Garter Tab Cast-On. This is what my shawl would look like, and you can see that huge arch right there in the center. And after you spend a lot of time working on these shawls and you try to block it, it will not block straight. You will still have some slight curve or point here at the base of this shawl, and that's just not something that you want, especially after you've spent so much time working on your shawl. So we want nice and straight so it blends in. And that's what I'm going to show you how to do today. The first thing you need to do is take a look at your pattern to see how many stitches you need to cast on and how many stitches you should end up with. Typically, a lot of shawls have you start with 3 stitches and end up with 9, so that's what I'm going to show you. I'm going to use the long tail cast on. I already have my slip stitch on my needle, so I'm going to cast on 2 more stitches so I can have 3 total. So here we go. I have 1, 2, 3 stitches cast on. The next step is to knit the garter tab part. So you're going to knit usually 6 rows of garter stitch. So that is knitting every row. And while I do this, I'll tell you a little story about the first time that I tried the Garter Tab Cast-On. It was for a shawl, and I was trying the cast on and having problems with it. I just couldn't seem to get it. And it got very frustrating. And I decided, you know what, I'm supposed to end up with 9 stitches. I don't really understand what this Garter Tab Cast-On is for, why I should want to do it. So why don't I just cast on 9 stitches and go from there and just forget this whole mess of this garter tab. And so that's what I did. And well, the results just weren't pretty. What I ended up with was a point. So rather than that curve that I showed you on the example earlier in the video, my shawl had a point right at the base of the part where you put it along your neck. So as it was being worn on the neck, it had a nice little point on the neck. It really wasn't nice. It was not comfortable. I thought it looked horrible, and I absolutely hated the shawl. And basically every time I looked at it, I groaned and thought, oh, why didn't I figure out this Garter Tab Cast-On and do it properly? So I actually gave the shawl away. So that way I didn't have to look at it anymore. I worked at the Garter Tab Cast-On until I got it, and now my shawls look much better. So that was 6 rows of garter stitch, so you can see the ridges there where I've got the garter. And usually at this point is when the pattern would tell you to go on to the next step. But I've found in doing the Garter Tab Cast-On that if you knit 1 extra row here, it actually makes things just a little bit easier. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I will actually have 7 rows total rather than 6 to knit. So we'll do that. And when you get to the end of this 7th row, instead of turning your work to go back the other way, leave it this direction. And then what you need to do is, instead of turning, you need to rotate your work. So this is what you're doing. You're now looking at this side of this garter tab that you have done. And we're going to pick up 3 stitches along this side. So it would probably be right about here, here, and here. If you don't know how to pick up and knit stitches, I'll show you that in another video. So watch for that. But for right now, I'm just going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to pick up and knit 3 stitches along this side. There's 1. Here is 2, and the last one makes 3. And once again, we're not going to turn the work and go back the other direction quite yet. We're going to rotate a final time. And now we're looking at our cast on edge. And this is where I think that I messed up that first time, where it gets a little tricky because it's hard to tell exactly where to pick up stitches along here. So just do your best. You're going to be picking up 3 stitches. So again, pick up and knit. And this corner stitch is always a little bit tricky because it's tight. So there's 1. And here we have the second one, 2. And then finally on this last little corner, we have 3. So if we take a look at the stitches on my needle, I now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 stitches. So I have ended up with the number of stitches that I need for the pattern, and now I have this section right here that is this garter tab. And as I continue working on my shawl and do the increases, it will create a straight line rather than a point or a curve. So if you go back to the examples from the beginning, you can see the difference. So there's the straight line. So now you can actually turn your work, and this would be working on the wrong side, and read your pattern to find out what the next step is. I hope that you enjoyed learning about the Garter Tab Cast-On, that you try it for your next shawl or other design that asks for it, and you end up with a nice straight edge on your shawl, and you're much happier with it than I was with my first try. Thank you.